Who are these meta spammers in Quickplay that will only play Valder the Fellord, Dark Mercia the Doom Queen, and Wolfar the Hammer Daddy? Why are these three so popular, gosh darn it, and what commanders can we pick to kick their butts? I'm the Sneaky Dragon, and this is my Wargroove 2 Quickplay tier list. But first, let's start with the three most commonly picked commanders and why they're so gosh darn popular. Valder the Fellord can summon a sword with their tier 1 groove. Let's go ahead and activate their tier 1 groove for only 75 groove charge. This is the fastest groove charge speed in the game right now, and it lets Valder summon a sword and just capture a village. If you steal one of your opponent's villages and hold it for 6 turns, that's a free golem for you. But gosh darn it, Valder's tier 2 groove at only 225 groove charge can do this. Notice that the fact that Valder gets their groove very quickly, both tier 1 and tier 2, is one of the common things we're going to see. Boom, boom. Valder's tier 2 groove can single-handedly destroy a stronghold. This is why Valder is so incredibly popular right now. 3 reasons. Are you listening? Because this is important. 1, very fast charge groove. 2, very early game impact. 3, easy to use. Same things apply to Wolfar. We're going to go ahead and activate Wolfar's tier 1 groove for the low cost of, what is that, 100 groove charge? For just 100 groove charge, Wolfar can kill a golem with their tier 1 groove. That's just silliness, but let's check out their tier 2 groove, okay? Their tier 2 groove. We're gonna whack this stronghold with this knight. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and turn on their tier 2 groove. We're gonna groove the knight. Boop, boop, boop. Here we go, tier 2 groove time. Pay attention to the knight. Oh my goodness, this thing is just dead. We'll bring in another knight and kill it. Wolfar can threaten strongholds about as well as Valder, though you do actually need an army. Wolfar can technically kill them from just one side if they wanted, can assassinate golems, can kill commanders across the stinking map, by the way. So much damage, so much pressure early on. But what about Dark Mercia? She does not have as fast a groove as these two, but that's okay. For just 150 groove charge, which will be before Wolfar or Valder gets their tier 2, Dark Mercia can completely heal herself and damage the opposing army, allowing you to bring in your army and just trash them. This ultimately wins you the fight, possibly the game, just from that interaction. Dark Mercia has the power to bully off Wolfar or Valder with her groove, threatening to kill them if they get too close, and heal all damage they do to her. So ultimately, why are these three so popular? Let's say it again. Fast, early threats and big damage, easy to use. And they all have an impact in the early game. So let's look at all the other commanders and figure out which of them have those qualities. Because remember, it's quick play. It's quick play, gosh darn it. And as a result of it being quick play, you're not going to have enough time to get to the end game. So, let's look at the quickest commanders. Mercia, Yoda, and Greenfinger. These are some of the quickest commanders in the game. Mercia and Yoda get their grooves incredibly quick. But alas, Mercia, I'm afraid, is going into B tier. Even though Mercia gets her groove very fast, and even though she's very easy to use, she just heals her army, Mercia does not have early game impact. This is because she's really better when you have a bunch of golems and pikes in the late game. So she's not quite as good, we'll put her in B tier. Yoda, on the other hand, has it all. A fast charge groove, does damage, lots of versatility, flexibility. I'd say isn't as easy to use because you have to do this in a way you don't dash and die and land in a pile of enemies. But ultimately, definitely an early game impact, so we can put Yoda in S tier. Greenfinger can use their tier 1 groove at the low cost of 150 groove charge. Sound familiar? Greenfinger comes online at the same time as Dark Mercia. But with Greenfinger, you can actually save for your tier 2 groove at 250, only a little bit more expensive than Valder's tier 2, and have high damage dealing vines, so we deal damage, that become really easy to use, win you fights, and definitely have a game-winning impact. S tier for sure. The only reason people have been sleeping on these two is because Yoda is a little bit harder to use than these three, and Greenfinger is slightly slower than these three. But they're both good enough that they come online in time for quick play, and you can use them as easily as the other three with a bit of practice. Now, what about Sigrid and the twins? Why did I group these two together? This is because they're worse versions of other commanders. Sigrid is a worse Wolfar, in the sense that Wolfar can kill units before Sigrid can, and with more versatility. Sigrid is also a worse Dark Mercia, in the sense that Dark Mercia can heal and deal damage about as often as Sigrid, and more effectively, sadly. So ultimately, Sigrid is just a worse version of the meta commanders, and I have to put her in B tier. She's not a bad commander, but she could use a little bit of a buff. The twins. So the twins are also kind of a worse Dark Mercia. If they use their Fire Groove, they deal less damage than Dark Mercia. If they use their Healing Water, they can heal their army, which Dark Mercia can't do. But yeah, so they're basically a slightly worse Dark Mercia with similar timings, but they can do some things that Dark Mercia can't do, so I'll put them in A tier. Alright. What about Koji, Tenri, and Vesper? Why did I group these together? I grouped these three together because you will not be likely to use their Tier 2 grooves. For one thing, Tenri doesn't really have a Tier 2 groove. Her Tier 2 groove is so bad you'll probably never use it. But all of their Tier 1 grooves, which cost 200 groove charge, are pretty good. Koji's actually does more damage than these folks, and is easier to use. 200 groove charge, you'll get that before Valder's Tier 2. It might not do as much to strongholds, gosh darn it, but it will if you only have one side to attack from. I'm going to say that Koji is S tier for sure, and the only reason people have been sleeping on Koji, who is easy to use, has a big impact and lots of damage, and pretty early on if you're just using their Tier 1, is just because it's slightly slower than these. Again, people are sleeping on amazing commanders just because they're a tiny bit slower. Tenri, again, you're just going to use her Tier 1 groove, but that's all you need. Her Tier 1 groove is, it's weaker than Wolfar if you just want to kill a unit, but you can yoink from far away, you have a lot of cross-map shenanigans you could do. I'd say Tenri is definitely A tier. Wolfar is probably more versatile than she is, and is definitely faster, but there's some plays only Tenri can do, so if you're just using her Tier 1 groove, she's definitely in there. Vesper. Oh my goodness frickin' Vesper. Vesper is amazing. Vesper, you get your Tier 1 groove at 200 groove, you just win the game. You just win the game. The only reason people aren't playing Vesper right now is because she's bugged, but once that gets patched, she's going to be S tier for sure. So yeah, no question, S tier. Alright, Emmerich and Pistol. Why did I group these two together? Well, they're both incredibly fast. I mean, they have some of the fastest grooves in the game. But they're not really early game commanders, weirdly enough. Emmerich's Crystal is all about defense and buffing powerful endgame ranged units. You kinda don't do that in the early game. It doesn't get you a lot in the early game, and Emmerich is not easy to use either. Emmerich is hard to use. For this reason, I've gotta put Emmerich in F tier, because even though they have a fast groove, you're not going to get value out of it until a late game state that won't happen in quick play. Pistol is similar to Emmerich, even though she's really fast and probably the strongest commander in the game right now. She really wants a late game big fight so that, she can go up to a big group of enemies and chain lightning them. Even though she gets her groove early on, you're not going to get this massive group of enemies until the end of the game. So she's amazing, but will you ever get the chance to see her be amazing? This is why I'm going to put her in A tier. Even though she's incredibly broken, you might not get the chance to use her brokenness. But she's fast, she's easy to use, she does this. So I figure you'll find a way to make her useful. A tier. Alright. Lytra and Caesar. I grouped them together because they are hard to use. I mean, with Lytra, you've got this weird, rotation thing that you have to figure out, and you need to get really close to the enemies and try not to die when you do it. Caesar has a similar problem. Like both of these two commanders, you're liable to get yourself killed by accident using their grooves. And you're liable to run out your clock trying to use their grooves. Just because they're so complicated, I'm gonna put them in B tier. To most of you, I recommend that you don't play these without a lot of practice. But, if you practice the heck out of them, they have S tier potential. They're really strong commanders, just hard to use on Quickplay's very fast clock. Sedge is one of the best commanders in the game, but Sedge is, by design, the slowest commander in the game. Sedge is great for normal games, but for quick play, you're not going to get groove in time. You're going to run out your clock. Sedge just doesn't work in the quick play format as well, and for this reason, I'll put Sedge in F tier for quick play. So if you want to beat these three meta commanders, if you see someone spamming Valder in your face, just go ahead and pick one of these to kick their butts. Throw Yoda at them and surprise them where you start dashing through their units before they even summon swords. Pick Greenfinger and just wall off all their swords. Make them do no damage or kill them with Koji. Make an invincible formation with Vesper, you know? Steal their unit with Tenri. Nuke them with Twins or Pistol. Or practice the heck out of Lytra and Caesar and just blow them up completely with an amazing play. Mercia and Sigrid will probably be weakish in quick play, but they're still pretty good, and if you practice with them, you can get some decent game states with them. You know, and there are things Sigrid can do. I will say, although I think she needs a buff, there are things Sigrid can do, and Mercia can do on some of the smaller quick play maps that make these two S tier. They can just break some of the smaller maps. Their healing is so good there. So keep this in mind. If you want to beat the three meta commanders, you have a lot of options. Start playing more of these. Let's show those meta spammers what's up. This has been the Sneaky Dragon, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to subscribe if you liked it. I don't care if you turn notifications on or whatever. It just makes me happy to see the numbers go up. That gives me joy in life. Let me know in the comments if you hate my list. That's all for now, and welcome to Wargroove.